This movie has such a spooky, witchy vibe that makes me love watching it during Halloween. Let's do it. The Craft is about this girl named Sarah that moves to a new town with her father and stepmother. And Sarah has some interesting abilities, and one day at school, this one girl notices that she's doing this with her pencil. This leads to Sarah being recruited by this girl and her trio to be their fourth. This group consists of Bonnie, who has these burn scars that cover her whole back, Rochelle, who is relentlessly bullied by this racist bitch named Laura, and Nancy, who is kind of like their leader, and she doesn't have the best home life. She is the victim of an abusive stepfather. Sarah also catches the eye of this popular guy named Chris, who tells him to watch out for those three girls. They're witches. Sarah decides that she is going to hang out with the girls, and they start to tell her about how they worship this powerful entity named Manon. Basically, Manon is bigger than God or Satan. It's the earth, it's the sky, it's everything. The girls bring Sarah to this local occult shop where she buys a book about witchcraft. And as they're leaving, Sarah sees this guy that had chased her into her house earlier, and he starts chasing her again. And when she turns to look at him, he is immediately hit by a car. This is the group to really believe that Sarah is their fourth and they can cause things to happen, and their combined will made that man be hit. So Sarah gets a little freaked out by this, and she tries to distance herself, and she decides to go on a date with that guy Chris despite the girls telling her to watch out for him. Sure enough, after she doesn't want to sleep with him on the first date, he spreads a rumor at school that they slept together, and she was really bad at it. So Sarah goes back to the group, and now they're going to continue practicing their abilities. So they get together and all use a little bit of their blood as a sacrifice, and they each cast a spell. So Sarah casts a love spell on Chris. Rochelle casts a revenge spell against her bully Laura. Bonnie casts a spell for beauty to get rid of her scars. And Nancy casts a spell asking for all of the power of Manon. And sure enough, it works. Chris becomes absolutely obsessed with Sarah. Bonnie's scars miraculously heal. And that girl Laura starts losing her hair. Nancy is at home one day when her stepfather starts to yell at her mother, and this causes Nancy to freak out, and her stepfather has a heart attack and dies. And it turns out he had a huge life insurance policy, so now her and her mother come into all this money, and they're able to get out of the trailer park they live in and buy an apartment. So everything is working out. The girls think they're super powerful, and they keep practicing to grow their power. They're able to get Rochelle levitating one day. Sarah does this spell where she's able to change her appearance. When Sarah tells that occult shop owner about it, she warns them and tells them whatever you put out comes back threefold. They, of course, ignore her warnings, and Nancy decides she wants more power. This isn't enough for her. So Nancy asks the girls to do this spell with her, and they do, and she is struck by lightning. And the next morning, the girls are shocked to look and see Nancy walking on water. Nancy just starts to get out of control. She is engaging in just completely reckless behavior. She thinks she is invincible. The other girls start to get negative consequences from their spells as well. Bonnie becomes like super narcissistic and basically impossible to be around because of her newfound beauty. Rochelle finds Laura absolutely traumatized with all of her hair falling out. And Chris is so obsessed with Sarah that he tries to SA her one night. So Sarah tells the group about this, and Nancy decides to go to a party that she knows Chris is going to be at. She manipulates herself by casting a spell which causes her to turn into Sarah, so he thinks that it's her. Eventually, Sarah comes upstairs and finds them and tries to get Nancy to stop. But instead, Nancy uses her powers to throw Chris out a window, and he dies. So this causes Sarah to completely turn away from the group. She wants nothing to do with this, and she casts a binding spell on Nancy to try to prevent her from doing harm to others or herself. Nancy finds this out, and her and the other girls basically threaten Sarah, like, if you don't want to be in our group anymore, you're gonna have to, like, leave the state because we're never gonna leave you alone. Sure enough, the three girls start to invade Sarah's dreams at night. She is seeing these horrifying visions and having these hallucinations. Sarah sees all these bugs everywhere. At one point, she sees a news report that her father died in a plane crash. The three girls show up to Sarah's house in an attempt to drive her to suicide because she confided in them that she had previously attempted to do that already. So at first, Sarah is terrified. She doesn't know what to do, but then she remembers who the fuck she is and that she is way more powerful than all three of these bitches. She casts a spell which causes Bonnie to see herself completely scarred and Rochelle to see herself with no hair. And they're like, oh shit, our spells are returning threefold, and they run out of the house terrified. And a final showdown happens between Nancy and Sarah. Ultimately, Sarah gains the upper hand, and she is able to cast another binding spell on Nancy to prevent her from doing any more harm, and this time it works. Some time passes, and Bonnie and Rochelle decide to pay a visit to Sarah, and instead of apologizing, they ask her if she has any powers anymore because theirs are gone. Sarah wants absolutely nothing to do with them and makes that very clear, and they walk away saying, ugh, I bet she doesn't have any powers anyway. But Sarah turns around and looks at them, and suddenly the wind starts blowing and the skies open up. And lightning hits a tree, which causes it to fall right in front of the two girls. So they're like, oh shit, she does still have powers, and they run the fuck away. Before they run away, Sarah tells them, be careful, you don't want to end up like Nancy. We cut and see that Nancy has been confined to a psychiatric institution. We see her strapped to a bed, absolutely insane and delusional, insisting that she's flying, and the movie ends.